Welcome to Truest Blood, the official True Blood podcast.
I'm Kristin Bauer.
And I'm Deborah Ann Wool.
And you've been invited in.
I wanna do bad things with you. On Truest Blood.
Welcome back to Truest Blood, where we sink our fangs into the series bite by bite.
Now, hold on to your butts, folks, because this week we have Eric fucking Northman.
Daddy! How many times we're going to have to do a tear tracker, and how many times I say daddy?
And how many times I say daddy. Wow, this was a long one coming. I think we have been anxiously prepared to talk to him for so long.
Oh, yeah.
This is almost no introduction required.
Yeah, I mean, what do we even say? It's daddy.
It's daddy. But first, if you can possibly keep it together for like 5 minutes, let's have a quick bite. It's time for 1 month in the life of Sookie Stackhouse. All right, so season 6 takes the award for the shortest season so far at only 7 days.
Oh my God.
Now, it is the first season with only 10 episodes, which is part of the reason, but still, it is but a week. We actually begin on night 69, which by my calculations is late November 11th into the early morning on the 12th. Now, it's currently 2010 in True Bloodland, which makes November 11th a Thursday. Don't ask me how I know. I'm a nerd. I like math. So let's take a look at a week in the life of Sookie Stackhouse, Day Planner Edition.
All right. Thursday the 11th. Storm the authority with Eric and try to rescue Bill. Wait, scratch that. He's a vampire god, no. Or something. Try to stake vampire god. Well, that did not work. Got my house back, though.
Friday the 12th, shift at Merlotte's. Shit, I overslept. Then I had to rescue another hot guy on my way to work. Ugh, Arlene is going to be so pissed. Found out I have a fairy grandfather, though, so that's pretty cool.
Saturday the 13th. No plans. Jason is not doing well, especially after Bill threw him against the wall with his mind. Seems better now after hanging out with Ben alone. What's that about?
Sunday the 14th, church. Scratch that. Had to lay a vampire sex trap. Worked pretty good, too. Turns out Hot Boy Ben is the vampire fairy hybrid that killed Mom and Dad. But he says he did it to save me, and Bill is kind of his daddy. It's been a weird day.
Monday the 15th. Asked Lafayette to contact dead parents. Done. But bad idea. Dad possessed Lafayette and tried to drown me again. Then Ben/Warlow had to save me again. So I took us to the fairy plane. Since Ben was telling the truth and he is super hot, I decided to sleep with him. I mean, it has been like 3 weeks since Mama got some.
Tuesday the 16th. No plans. Found out Terry died. Arlene is all broken up. It's awful. Bill says he needs Warlow's blood to save vampire kind, and Warlow wants to make me his vampire bride. Doesn't sound too bad when there's so much death around.
Wednesday the 17th. Give Bill Warlow's blood. Oh, fucking scratch that. Goddamn vampires. Eric took it all, so the deal is off. Luckily, Warlow will make it, but he still wants his end of the deal. I mean, I guess I keep my promises.
Thursday the 18th. Terry's funeral. Beautiful service. Arlene seems pleased. It's easy to forget how meaningful life and death can be. Also, I guess vampires can daywalk now? Become Warlow's vampire bride. And scratch that too. Nothing is going to plan this week. I simply told him I wanted to date a little first, and he got all murdery on me. We only met 6 days ago, after all. Anyway, I escaped, and after 2,500 years on Earth, who could have guessed 2010 would be Warlow's last?
And now, free from any immediate threat, we have a 6-month time jump to the end of season 6. Yes, it won't last long. And we begin season 7 in the balmy mid-May of 2011. I don't think there's anyone listening to this podcast that really needs an introduction to Alexander Skarsgård, but let's just go over everything y'all already know, or maybe don't know. You know he's Swedish. You know he's tall, right? He is the firstborn of 8 children of actor Stellan Skarsgård, who is pretty much in every movie and every movie franchise that has ever been made.
Alex started acting when he was just 7 years old in a Swedish production. At age 13, he had the lead role in a Swedish television production, The Dog That Smiled. But then it seems like he took a break from acting because when he was a little older, he went on to serve in the Swedish Navy. Finally, coming back to the screen in a hilarious first role in Zoolander. If you can all remember that very memorable scene where they have a water fight with the gasoline pumps at the gas station. He was then in the HBO miniseries Generation Kill, which led to his becoming Eric Northman.
During and after True Blood, well, there's so many things. The list just goes on. But I watched him have to lose a ton of weight to be in the East and then gain a ton of muscle during season 7 to become Tarzan. He has starred in The Hummingbird Project, The Little Drummer Girl, and The Northman. And of course, he won multiple awards for his performances in Big Little Lies and also Succession. I literally could go on and on. But without further ado, we will play for you the interview in which I cry even more than usual, laugh a lot as usual, and Deb asks actually really good questions, thankfully, as usual. Okay, who's crying?
Kristin, you're already tearing up. It makes me
I'm
sort of
tearing
makes
up
me so
already.
happy. So yeah, who's here, Kristin? You want to introduce your
Daddy is here.
Oh, my sweet little baby. There she is.
There she is, still crying after all these years.
When was the last time you saw each other?
In the before times, right?
Was it with Bucky when we went for lunch in LA?
Oh, yeah.
Was that the last time we saw you?
Yeah. Daddy.
Oh, so maybe 3-4 years ago?
3-4 years ago, could be. And then
Yeah.
Alex, I think for you and me, even longer. Could be
Oh, Deb.
could be the show, as far as I can remember.
Has it been?
I mean, it could be.
What was that, 35 years ago?
35, just about, I think. I'm going to be 60 in, a couple of months.
Oh, I miss you guys. It's so
you
lovely
too.
to see you.
I
Really,
know.
really amazing to see you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you for squeezing it in.
My pleasure. I'm so happy we could do this.
Fantastic.
Thrilled to see you guys.
You too. We're so excited. We've been watching the show through. We always like to start with, how did you get the job? How did this come to be?
I can tell you what I didn't get. I didn't get the role of Bill. That's what I initially auditioned for. I was
Stephen Moyer.
It would have been yeah, you, Steve Moyer. It would have been beginning of 2007, and I was in LA. I hadn't worked in many years at all. I was just desperately trying to get a job, and was auditioning a lot and just not booking anything. And then I was called in to audition for the role of Bill, and I don't think I did a very good job. Well, clearly I didn't get the job.
That's
so,
fascinating that the 6'4" Swede would not originally have come in for the Viking role.
I don't think they were auditioning for Eric yet, because Eric doesn't show up until the 4th episode, so almost halfway through the first season. So I think they did what they call cattle call for just Bills. So every dude in LA went in and auditioned for the role of Bill. And I don't know if Alan already were thinking about other potential characters on the show, or but either way, I auditioned with the 9,000 other auditions I'd done that didn't hear back. Didn't think more about it. And then I got lucky and I booked a job, and it was another HBO show, a limited series called Generation Kill. And it was to be shot in Africa, in Namibia and Mozambique and South Africa. And it was 7 months in the desert, basically, about the invasion of Iraq. And I was over the moon, so thrilled, went out to Africa. And when I was out there shooting, my agent reached out and said, this thing you auditioned for a couple of months ago, True Blood, they are inquiring about your availability in the fall. And it's not for the role they auditioned, but they want to see you for another role of Viking vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't available because I was going to be shooting Generation Kill, the show in Africa, till Christmas. And the plan was to start shooting the episode with Eric Northman in the fall. So I wouldn't have been able to do that. And then the writer's strike happened. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
Well, you guys...
Yeah.
We were already in production. All the scripts were written on Generation Kill. I was able to finish that job.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, True Blood pushed and didn't start in the fall, but instead went into the early winter of 2008. So yeah, the strike saved me. I would not, otherwise I would not have been able to audition or get the job of Eric Northman. So what happened was I finished up in Africa and went straight to LA to audition for Eric, and did a couple of auditions, and then I went in and met Anna for the first time, and it was in front of Ellen and a couple of executives from HBO, and had a lot of fun, but didn't think I would get it because it felt like such a long shot, and I really enjoyed working with her, but I was like, I knew it was a big job, and I was pretty sure they were going to go with someone more established. I had one show under my belt at the time.
Right.
I just finished Generation Kill. It wasn't even out yet. So I was very, very green and inexperienced. So I didn't have any expectations or hopes. But then, then they called and said they wanted me to play the role. And I was thrilled.
Wild. That's how I felt coming in. It was kind of my first job or second job as well. So yeah, I get it. So
it was mind-boggling. For the longest time, thought that they'd miscast me, and I was just waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and be like, "All right, the real guy's here. You can head out now."
Yeah, I think everyone feels like that.
did that ever go away? When did that subside?
I'm still struggling with that. I'm on set right now, and I'm waiting for them to knock on the door of my trailer and tell me that Jake Gyllenhaal is here.
Yeah. It's amazing to look back and think of the synchronicity, especially with my tear tracker, and how it's going to be so embarrassing. I'm going to cry through the whole thing, but obviously my feelings for you. And Anna and Steven having a whole tribe, a whole family now, that somehow through casting agents and some sort of universal something or other, we are all coming to this show and ending up here on that set in Fantasia in Long Beach, in that alley. Trying to fly for the first time, you in that wig. If I think about our first night and how you just said, you were thinking, that feeling of they're going to figure out I've been miscast. And I was flying in from the Philippines, having gotten any...
I remember that. You were still jet lagged. You just landed.
Ooh, I didn't know what was happening. They tell me in the Philippines, you got to get out of here your last day and get back because you got this show, True Blood. And I'm like, what was that? And they said, it's the vampire one with Alan Ball. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then I show up and they're like, he's your maker. I'm like, hi, what's your name? And then I'm Kristin.
Yeah. And what's a maker?
And what's a maker? And and then I remember saying to you, I was so freaking out of it, but I remember saying to you, you were speaking Swedish, of course, in the scene. And I said, are you speaking Cambodian? And you went, no. And I was like, I don't know that he's going to be fun to work with. And I just didn't know what was happening. And I really feel like by the end of that night, you, me, and Anna, and Michael Lehman, I mean, that was a crazy night. I honestly feel like we were bonded for life after that baptism into this show.
Yeah, but do you remember how the night ended with us on a skateboard being pulled? So the stunt was at the end of the scene, the two of us are supposed to fly into the night in vamp speed, just fly off. and the special effect was the two of us standing holding each other on a skateboard, being pulled by a rope by
a grip. Yeah, like someone strong.
Basically, one of the grips.
Yeah.
Pulled us slowly away from Steven and Anna, and I remember thinking on that skateboard, like, is this going to be any good?
Oh God.
Yes, and I had the same thought. I remember they woke me up in my trailer, and then we went on into the alley, and I saw that piece of wood that they had made with the four wheels that they had drilled into it, and the piece of rope to pull it, and the piece of rope to stop it. And you said there wasn't so much slack in that rope, and we started laughing. And then Anna, at one point, started laughing so hard, and I looked at her, and she goes, "You should see your face," because I was thinking, I thought this was a bigger budget show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then you and I are like, it's really hard. This is an uneven surface they're pulling us on. And then there was a guy, a grip with a fan plugged in on an extension cord running backwards in front of us to try to move your wig.
Meanwhile, they're asking us to look tough and badass.
Yeah.
It's like, we're trying not to fall off that thing.
I remember Alex at one point asking you when we were on the skateboard, what are you doing with your arms? You know, because we're trying to figure out how no one knew how to fly. And you flapped them like you were a bird. You said, "This is what I'm doing." And that was it. We could not stop laughing.
Flying.
And I really...
Because you also asked me in Cambodia.
Oh my God. And that pretty much set us off for the next 7 years, because, I mean, how many times did I have no idea where we were going from, what we were doing, what part of the scene we were in? I remember so many times it would be silent for a really long time, and I would think, why is it quiet? Like, who isn't saying their line? And I would look, and everyone was looking at me. And I would think, oh, shit, sorry, okay. And then I would say my line. And it became very helpful that everyone would look to me to help cue me from my line. But what was happening most times was I was thinking, God, these people are so good. I really love these people. What an amazing set. You know, I'd be in the middle of the take enjoying my day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What was your on-set experience then, Alex, throughout all of this? Is it that? Is it just like enjoying your time?
No,
is it
was
hard, deep work? Is it a little of both? Yeah. What was your
seriously?
experience?
That first night was so surreal, and everything was. But through it all, I've never laughed so much in my life.
Yeah.
And I was there with 3 strangers at the time, you know. But with Steven and Anna and Kristin, to kind of the bond we formed there that night carried us for 7 years. And then when you joined and the whole gang, and we got to meet everyone else, and it was to this day by far one of the most fun jobs I've had the privilege of working on. We were just having a blast, and it was just the tone of it. It was so much fun and so rewarding. We would show up and be like, what crazy stuff we're going to get to do today, and ripping a dude's heart out and using his aorta as a straw, or just the relationship between Pam and Eric, how that evolved. I don't think that was planned. I think that was something that grew organically between us, and it felt so natural to kind of go deeper into that. And it also made it really interesting in terms of Eric as a character. I thought it was interesting because in the beginning, he was kind of presented as a kind of menacing villain. But then to see this relationship with his daughter, and how she can be like this petulant teenager, and how she kind of controls him in a way. This super powerful old vampire. He's like then scared of his teenage daughter, and he's like, and it was so fun to give the character that flavor and take it in that direction because it gave such complexity to the character.
Yeah.
But I do remember in the beginning when we shot this stuff, the scene on the throne, the first time you see
Yes.
Pam and Eric.
Yes.
That the producers wanted me to kind of speak with like a lower register, like a bit of a darker, more menacing voice.
Yeah.
And I was having a hard time with that because when I tried it, I felt that I couldn't really pull it off. I felt like it became a little bit of a cliche, or I understood what they wanted, and I got the note, and it made sense to me that it's the first time you meet this the antagonist to Bill, and he's supposed to be this formidable foe, so you want it to be intimidating. And I don't know, because I don't think I pulled it off, and I think they might have done something to my voice in the first episode that it's pitched lower.
Oh, I got to look at it again.
No.
If you listen to it now, I think, and then I think they gave up because it was like, they couldn't be bothered, maybe. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I think I think I could be completely wrong, and no one's verified this, but I think, remember when I watched it, I was like, oh, that sounds a little like the register's a bit lower than my natural register. And so maybe they pitched it down a bit to give Eric more like or did something with the vocal quality of it to give it a different flavor that they then kind of, I think, gave up on after a couple episodes maybe. But
well, that's an interesting observation, because it is that thing, like, one of the things I've admired about True Blood over through my years on it was that adaptability, that there is that sense of like, oh, well, you have to do something for the story or because it's from the book. But pretty quickly they realized, well, why don't actually we go with the actor's natural gifts or inclinations or relationships? So like that, maybe Eric is more than just a deep-voiced antagonist.
Right.
Maybe he has this relationship with his progeny, and kind of leaning into what was actually happening, which is sort of to credit them, I think, for realizing maybe there's, fruit there.
I think they, in order to keep a show going and interesting, and you want to lean into the qualities of your actors and their relationships between them, and what's interesting, what's working, what's not working. And that's why they probably decided to not kill off Lafayette after the first season, because it's like, well, if we follow the book, like, this is so good, or you have to be on your toes and be nimble and be like, oh, something happens in front of the camera, and you're like, oh, let's explore this more, or something looks great on the page, but then when we're doing it, we're like, oh, it's not really working, and then you steer it in a different direction. So that keeps the show active and exciting, not only, well, hopefully for the audience, but also for us, because they start to write for us and for the relationships and the storylines and the arcs that are actually working in that, when there's sparks on set.
So one of the things that's, playing a young vampire, I didn't have, history beyond my own, human life to kind of explore. So what was so fascinating to me rewatching the show is older vampire. I mean, Alex, you had 1,000 years of history as Eric to explore, both as an actor and literally on the show. So I'm so curious about these flashbacks. I mean, going back to his Viking life, going back to meeting Pam, going back to World War II, what is that like to explore different periods of history and his history?
Or my favorite flashback to the 80s, when we ran the video shop.
Yes. Yes.
That was amazing.
The best one ever.
That was amazing. Oh my God. I just remember that because I've seen it online and I post it every once in a while.
Yeah.
But when Tarbuck, Ginger is there, and you come walking in that total Luke Perry ripoff outfit.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't 80s. It was early 90s.
The 90210. and they even had it in slow-mo, and she's just like, And it starts, speaking of the writers, you know, seeing stuff on screen, it starts her obsession with you.
Yes.
And the tape, I think it was you on set, Alex, where you added in, like, having to try to rewind the VHS tape that's come out.
Yep.
I mean, that was epic.
She played it. I love that, how the writers, like, made her really intelligent. She was like a college student, and then you meet her and it's like a completely different character. We completely ruined her.
Eric and Pam ruined Ginger.
But
Promising young woman.
Yeah, no, Deb, like the possibilities were endless. We could go back to the well over and over again, because with a character who's 1,000 years old,
amazing.
It was such a gift to be able to sit down and be like, all right, where do we want to go now? At what point in time, and where in the world we want to go? Like, 17th century France, or back to the Viking Age, or a video store in Shreveport in the early 90s. It was a real treat, and so fun to find these moments where you can a pivotal moment of Eric's life, that's where something happened, and you can bring the audience back and show that. So I loved all those flashbacks. I really did.
Let's talk about a pivotal moment, and that's Pam's making.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I also just watched when so many funny things on the show. So this part isn't funny, but I remember it's when you released me. Because all the stuff with my making was so epic on the page. And then when we filmed it, each scene sort of didn't, in my mind, go how I'd wanted it to go on the day, although it looks great on screen, I think. But the day that you released me, remember, I cried in the rehearsal. I cried. I'll still cry about it. And Wu had written it. And we were saying to Wu before we shot it, we don't want to do this. Why does he have to release her? And he goes, well, because she's going to sense if he's in danger and come to his rescue. And you were like, do you watch the show? I was at the stake burning and she didn't come to my rescue. Well, it's going to be for this reason, you know, and none of it held up what Wu said.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so so you're protected. Well, but just the other day we shot and he finally just said, just shoot it. And that scene was very moving on the day, and I still hate it. I hate that scene. But all of that, we were because remember, we kept asking for years, so what's our backstory? What's Pam and Eric's story? And they were like, pat us on the head and say, we don't, you know, just go shoot the scene. We'll tell you when you need to know. Because they didn't know.
No, they hadn't decided yet.
Yeah.
They hadn't decided yet. Somebody told me that seeing your relationship with Godric informed them of, well, wait, he would also have that relationship with Pam, and Pam would have that feeling towards him. Now, the Viking stuff, that I read in some interview, I tried to internet stalk you a bit to be professional about this interview today, but in some interview, it said that playing the Viking flashbacks on True Blood inspired your producing the movie Northman. Yeah,
it did. It was yet another incredibly fun flashback to shoot with Alan, who played Godric, and again, to go back and for myself to kind of learn how Eric became Eric Northman, what was his journey, who was he as a human, but to go back and play those stories in Swedish from back 1,000 years ago during the Viking Age, and made me realize that I hadn't seen a great Viking film in a very long time, in many, many years. And I was a bit curious because I thought it's such an interesting mythology, culture, and people around the world are fascinated by it. And it's so ripe for a great epic story to be told about it. But dipping my toes into that for a few nights when we shot the Viking flashback made me think, well, potentially it could be fun to tell like in Norse mythology in that kind of that style, but a feature length version of it.
That's awesome. Well, another storyline I'm really curious about because it was a real turn. I'm curious in your thoughts on Amnesia Eric and what that did for the character, obviously relationship with Sookie, and how, you know, you've built a certain character over some seasons, and now there's this switch to finding another aspect. So yeah, what was that like for you?
Well, this shows how great my memory is. When you said that, I was like, Eric had amnesia?
I mean, we just watched it, so that's why. So yes, the witches cursed Eric.
That's how method I am. I have amnesia about Eric's amnesia.
You forgot.
It is remarkable watching the show because I am watching this and I'm like, a lot of the show is very new to me. So yes, you're not alone.
Well, it was kind of about finding the 5-year-old within Eric, that like the innocent, naive little boy deep inside, which is a bit of a contrast to the Eric we at that point. It was at a point where the character of Eric was quite well established and people knew who he was. So then it was a real treat to get to go in a very, very different direction and show a very unexpected side of Eric. And it also kept it interesting for me because when you play a character like we did for 7 years, we were so lucky that it never got stale, or because they threw so many different things at us. It took so many different turns, and the characters changed and evolved, and the relationships changed. Because I've spoken to people who've played the same character for many years, and quite frequently people get it starts to feel like Groundhog Day. You lose excitement because you feel like you're not learning anything new about the character. You're not discovering anything. You're not pushing yourself, or there's never you're basically playing the same scene over and over again in a sense. And I felt that was never a risk on True Blood, because again, suddenly like, all right, well, next season you don't remember anything, so you're not ostensibly the Eric Northman that you've gotten to know is now gone, and now you're a naive, innocent little boy. Okay, and then that made it that kept it really interesting and fun.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's a lot of acceptance. That kind of like, okay, let's try. Let's play.
And for Eric, that was great. He could for the first time show his vulnerability in a way that he kept kind of concealed up until that point. So that amnesia section was really interesting in that regard.
It's just such an interesting turn, and it is that softer side of Sears that comes out of Eric. Yeah. Let's talk about costumes and hair a little bit. The wig of our nightmares.
Yeah.
Thank God that went away.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was I think it was a look from Charlene from the books, right? That Eric was supposed to have like this kind of little
Fabio locks.
Little Fabio look, long a long mane. And my hair was very short because I just played a Marine on Generation Kill and came straight from that. So there was no time to grow out a lush mane. So hence the wig. And I hated it. It was it was fun the first time you put it on, because then you're like, oh, that's a fun look. But then you got to do it for you wear it every day, all day, every day for 7 months, and potentially several seasons. And the hair always got in my eyes, and it was just like, it was because Eric often left it like, it wasn't like in a ponytail, it was flowing. But I also felt that I was in no position to kind of question it or anything. I was just, again, I was in that state of mind that we talked about a bit earlier, where I was just like, waiting for someone to knock on my door and tell me that I've been replaced. So like, I was not going to be like, actually, I don't think Eric should have a wig. What about if he's got short hair? Yeah, I was just like, I'm going to shut my mouth and do what they tell me to do and just be grateful that I get to play. So I didn't say anything about it or do it. Like, I was completely their decision to, after the first season, get rid of it. And I obviously didn't protest that. I was very happy about that decision. And I was thrilled when I got to read the first episode of the second season of how not only selfishly like, oh, great, I don't have to wear this goddamn wig again, but also creatively how it was scripted with because it also said, it kind of said so much about Eric and Pam's relationship. That fact that Pam dyes his hair, Pam cuts his hair, and it's like, and when Eric goes down into the dungeon and to rip that guy apart in front of Lafayette, his main concern is that he would get some blood and brains in his hair because Pam's gonna kill me. And after a vicious, brutal scene like that, after that carnage, to have Eric concerned about having brains in his hair because Pam will be upset, it's just like, it's delicious. It's so delicious. And and
that was a great scene.
Yeah, I really love that moment.
That was really brilliant.
There are a couple scenes throughout True Blood that kind of encapsulate all the aspects of the show, and that's one of them. It's the humor, it's the over-the-top sort of violence and gore. You know, it's, you know, there's a little bit of romance with the like, oh, Pam's gonna, a little bit of like that sort of heart of it is sort of all in the one scene. And there's a few scenes. I
went to a Halloween party just a few years ago, so this was like several years after True Blood ended, and a guy was dressed as Eric Northman in that scene, from that scene, with the foils in the hair and like the
bloody hair. Amazing.
And with a gown and all.
Oh my God.
It was a good outfit.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's spectacular.
I feel like Eric and Pam, so I'm speaking for both of us, but I'm curious how you feel about it. I can't recall, for me, all the way through to the last scene, any arc that I didn't like or enjoy or didn't feel like it made sense or that I had to ever do anything that the character wouldn't do. I'm wondering how you feel about that for Eric, because I feel like we had a pretty fun season 7.
Yeah, as much as I enjoyed the kind of the love triangle with Bill and Sookie, it's a central piece to the whole show, obviously, so it can never completely go away, but there are only so many arguments on the porch of Sookie Sacco's house you can have, both vying for her attention. And luckily the writers understood that, and they didn't want to go back again, speaking, you know, to what we talked about earlier about something that's repetitive and where you start to feel like it's Groundhog Day. And so towards the end, when Brian Buckner was the showrunner, we did have a conversation about where would it go. Because at one point we were maybe only going to do 6th season and not go on and do a 7th. And then I remember talking to Bucky about what creatively would potential season 7 look like and what would be fun to explore. And I basically said I think it should be a deeper exploration of Eric and Pam, because that to me is the most interesting relationship in Eric Northman's life. The one that will outlast all the others. And so I was thrilled when the script started coming in for season 7, the fact that Eric and Pam are kind of off doing their own thing and that they have their own little storyline. And also selfishly that I got to spend the last couple of months on set with you, Kristin, like, because those were my favorite nights. And I'm saying nights because it was mostly night shoots, you know, we did.
Mostly nights.
I know, we did so many nights. I mean, Tear Tracker. I know, because I was scared you weren't going to come back for 7. And
I didn't want to ask you or pressure you on set, but like, or beg you, throw myself at your feet and go, please come back. But I had kind of heard like that you were kind of in talks about it. And then when I started seeing, you know, I found out you were coming back, and then I saw the scripts, I was like so happy. And we had so much fun. And you were getting ready for Tarzan.
Yeah.
So your hair was growing, your shoulders were growing, your costumes were getting smaller, tighter, and we were shooting intensively because we used to get days off, but we were shooting intensively.
Yeah.
So we had this really wonderful, you know, time together.
Yeah.
But I had a family tragedy in my family in the middle of 7. And honestly, like it was a very hard thing, but I just felt, you know, we didn't talk about it on the set because I don't think I could have, but we just got you and my vampire crew and having a place to go, you know, to get through that.
Yeah.
So it was dear to my heart. So when I think of 7, it's a lot, you know, fun dialogue, you know, Republican. I got to say Republican on television, you know, and being with you and being supported. It was kind of a big deal. So thank you for coming back, and thank you for having that conversation with Bucky.
Yeah. So the only reason I was even contemplating leaving the show was I was I knew that the prep for Tarzan would be very, very intense, and we had a start date for Tarzan, and True Blood was only going to be 6 seasons. Our contract, it was a 6-year contract, and it felt like it would come to an end after the 6th season. But then as we were approaching the end of the 6th season, and then they're going to potentially tie it together, the conversation started about continuing on. And again, initially I felt, as much as I loved working on it, I was also a bit stressed out about the prep for Tarzan because I knew how many months and how much I needed to focus on that. And to kind of juggle both at the same time, I was worried that would be a bit too much. And also creatively, again, I'm like, well, it's been by far the best job of my life, but maybe it's time that it comes to an end. But in those conversations with Brian Buckner and also the other writers, the possibility to kind of have one last hurrah with Eric and Pam was just it was just too delicious to pass on. I was like, I don't know. It doesn't matter if that means I have to kind of eat steak and potato and work out throughout the night so we can shoot True Blood and be prep for Tarzan at the same time. And they were so, and I'm so,
I don't know how you did it.
I'm so grateful to HBO and because if you watch season 7, you can tell like my hair is growing. I'm putting on a lot of weight. It's just like it takes place over a couple of weeks, but like suddenly Eric is just like long haired and
beefing out.
But they kind of put continuity to the side and like, well, it's fine. We'll just do this. And so to me, season 7 felt like a victory lap with my best friend, and just like the fact that you and I got to go and have some fun, and I could just enjoy those moments of you screaming Republican and all that. Like it was.
I know, it was great.
Yeah,
it really was.
We had a great season 7.
Well, we
sure
could
did.
talk all day long, but I know we have to let you go. So, Kristin, I wondered if you wanted to ask your last question.
When you think back on your experience of True Blood, what are 3 words that come to mind?
Well, it's like family, because I love you like family, and it's and it was very beautiful to hear you talk about in a moment of loss, Kristin, how much the True Blood family meant. And I didn't go through a terrible loss like that during production, but I also felt that, and even now, what is it, 10, 15 years later, I've never felt that camaraderie, and I've been blessed, and I've worked on so many amazing projects with fun people, but what we had was quite unique, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that experience. And to be so lucky that you can, no matter how tired you are when you're on your way to set, you're giddy, you're so excited to meet your pals, and just like, because it's going to be the most fun night ever. I thought of you just the other day. I'm shooting a space show called Murderbot up in Toronto, and one of the sets it's a big space habitat, and there was a big crowd scene, and we blocked it, and there were all these like pillars and stuff, and I remember thinking of how you and I perfected blocking, finding a position where you wouldn't be seen too much.
Yes.
Some actors are like, well, they will fight for a position where they definitely are seen a lot, but Kristin and I had this thing of like, we would always, during a blocking, and we kind of made it into a sport where we would like position ourselves. If it's a big crowd scene, we'd position ourselves like halfway hidden behind like a pillar or like a big tree or something, knowing that during coverage they're not going to see us much, so we can just like hang out in our sweatpants and laugh and like have fun.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, we did.
So when I was standing there, I was like, I wish my baby was here, because she would have told me exactly where to stand, how to get out of as much coverage as possible.
I am the laziest actor. I'm so phenomenally lazy. It's amazing how little I want to be on camera.
But that's why we love each other. That's why we work so well together, because I feel the same. We were like, I was like, all right, look, where can we go now? Where can we hide?
So we can be in our trailer watching a movie. We can go to Crafty. We can, Daddy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know. I think of you all the time. I'll throw this in there. You and I are different personalities in the sense that I remember there was a scene where the line that you had to say was something you felt Eric wouldn't say. And this is many years into it. And there was another time where we had to get out of this car and we had to be in a rush, and everyone, of course, was dying and being killed, and we had to kill people. But yet, and we had this huge walk and talk, but we only had like 10 feet to do it in. And you were like, this just doesn't feel right. There's probably a better way to do this. And you were really genuinely making the scene better. And you just felt really calm about communicating that there's a better way to do this. And I've often thought of you too in my life when I'm being nervous and people pleasing and anxious. I think often, what would Alex do? Like, try to inhabit like a firstborn 6'4", Swedish, calm, loving guy. I stood next to that. I was under that umbrella for 7 years. I remember you and I put forward some changes on a scene, and we emailed them, but it was coming from my email. I was the one on the iPad typing. And before I went to send it to Bucky, I was like, ooh, I'm terrified to push send on this because it's coming from my email. And you were like, why are you so terrified? It's Bucky. We love Bucky. Bucky loves us. And so I wrote at the end, this is from Alex, and sent it. Because Pam is under the Alex umbrella, just in my experience being next to you, playing Pam, when I'm meeting fans, I'm always the conduit to Alex. Tell Alex this. Why isn't Alex here? I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah. So I think of you in many ways often, but that's a way I think of you that you may not know.
Oh, well, that makes me very happy to hear. And you definitely contributed to changing stuff and making it better. It wasn't like you just came in and read the words on the page and then that was it. You had a creative input, and maybe I was more blunt about it.
I think I would come to you and hope that you would say it, like to you and go, I think it should go this way. And you would go, yeah, that's true. And then you felt comfortable. going, hey, we have a way to make this better?
Well, because I think if you work with directors, showrunners, writers that are intelligent and good at their job, they will want actors to come with their input. And if they have thoughts, ideas, try that. And then it might be crap and you discard it. And I would often come with ideas that we tried and then they were shit. So we would go in a different direction. But I want to work with people who encourage me to be like, well, if you have something on your mind, then say it and try it. And maybe we can make this scene different or better, or at least try it. And I feel like on True Blood, all our directors and Alan, obviously, and the writers, they did encourage us to do that, because then again, that's how they saw what we liked to do, what our weaknesses were and what our strengths were, where they would be like, okay, well, in our relationship, like, oh, Alex and Kristin, they like to do this kind of stuff. And then maybe, and that really works. When they do that, it vibes and it's like, it sparks. Let's explore that more and lean more in that direction. That's kind of why I feel, if I'm insecure on set, if I feel like, then I would probably wither like and be like, well, I don't feel comfortable saying anything because I feel like I'm being shut down, or but again, back to like it being such a incredible environment on that set, and it felt so safe and free and liberating. You could just do and say whatever you wanted because you're surrounded by your pals and your family, and you can never go wrong. You try it, and if it's not right, then you'll do it. You explore that path, and then you go in a different direction.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying. You just proved my point. Like, that's what I stood next to for 7 years. That sort of like easy, open, communicative confidence. It was amazing.
Oh, well, I miss you guys. I love you so much. And God, I want to, we'll write something and we'll do something else together.
Yeah.
Someone asked me recently, like, someone was like, oh, would you ever do another season of True Blood? And I wanted to say the cool actor answer, which is like, well, if it makes sense, if it warrants another season, but I also feel like I don't want to like go back in that. I want to kind of respect what it was, and it was, a moment in time, and it had some relevance back then, and it was subversive and interesting, but maybe we should leave it at that. That, I think that would be the cool thing to say, but I was like, fuck yeah. Like even if the script was terrible.
I know.
Even if they didn't have a script, I was like, I'd be back in a heartbeat. If that meant like being back on a rickety skateboard with you and you Deb as well, and just like
at 4 in the morning.
At 4 in the morning in a bad wig.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. I know. Me too, brother. Me too. So is that like part of your 3 words? Are they?
Yeah, those were
family?
Those were my 3,000 my 3,000 words to sum up how I feel about the show.
I know. I know.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you
for taking
guys.
the time.
It was my pleasure.
Doing this with us. We know you're busy, and this has just been so wonderful. I mean, the people listening at home are going to be thrilled with this. How do you feel, Kristin?
I feel dehydrated and swollen and happy.
It was really an honor, like a wonderful pleasure to watch you two reconnect and reminisce how much it meant to each other.
Yeah, because normally I get to see him more, but because of COVID, everything's been weird, and he's mainly based in Sweden. So that's my first time reconnecting in years, really. Yeah. There's been emails we send each other, like here and there. I find a funny photo on my computer when I'm looking for something else, and I send it to him, and then he sends me back a wacky photo. Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad that others can hear. I mean, everybody knows he does so much press for so many shows, but how sweet he is.
Yeah.
Just lovely. I mean, your daddy is cool too, but like, right? I'm a little partial to my daddy. Like, I love your daddy.
Of course.
I love your daddy.
I know. We love all the daddies.
We love all the daddies, and it's not weird that I still call him daddy.
All the daddies. Happy Father's Day. Happy Daddy Day to all of you
forever.
out there. I think also there's this, especially with a character like Eric that is a little opaque. And then you get those rich flashbacks and that rich relationship with Pam to sort of crack him open.
Yeah.
You get the amnesia a little bit to crack him open. But it also makes it a little hard to tell, like, who's the actor, who's the person behind there. So to have him come on and sense that sweetness, that soft-spokenness, that insecurity that is shared and revealed, how much that will mean to people listening. And I think it's easy to forget that, you look at someone like Alexander Skarsgård and you go, he must just be walking around with all the confidence in the world all the time. Right. And for him to share that he has those same things, I know it's for me, cathartic to hear that. And to say, I really appreciated you both.
Yeah, I'm going to need a nap.
Next season on Truest Blood will be the final season of True Blood. Oh. I'm already welling up. We can't believe we made it all the way, and it's going to be so sweet and also so heartbreaking for it to come to an end, Deb. Yeah. I mean, you're just going to have to write things for me to say to myself in the mirror. I'm going to be so sad.
Well, Kristin, it has been a tremendous honor to do this show with you.
Likewise.
And, of course, for us to share it with everyone at home.
Yeah.
So, season 7 brings us back to Bon Temps. Hep V threatens to eradicate both vampires and humans alike.
We have devastating character deaths. Series-long mysteries are answered. And we will bring you all the behind-the-scenes stories that we can gather.
As always, thank you for listening, Troupies. Subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll see you next season.
You all come back now. You hear?
Truest Blood is produced by Safe Haven for HBO. Executive producers are Janina Gavankar, Kristen Bauer, and Deborah Ann Wool. Our producer is Gabrielle Gallon, and our audio producer is Christopher Wool. Our theme song was recorded just for this podcast by Jace Everett. Additional music was composed by Timo Chen. And remember, you can watch all of the original episodes of True Blood on Max.